let's go ahead and throw up the agenda. So 3 o'clock, we'll get started. I first want to thank everybody for participating in the survey. We'll start there. Go ahead and
Thank you.
show us the results, Phil. What did you guys think of the survey, just out of curiosity? Confusing, make sense? Did you like the process? Was it confusing or tedious?
It wasn't tedious. It was like, how do you pick, you know, you're forced to pick an answer of something that you don't feel strongly about either way. So
I would agree with that.
I mean,
So the process, so these were the questions I put in there. And so what it was doing, it would like say, you know, it would pick this and say which one's worse or which one's the bigger issue. So high-speed boating versus rerunning, high-speed boating versus conditions on others, high-speed versus gas. So it just kept going through, and then when it hit the second one, it would, you know, compare them against. And so it's a ton of questions. It seems like they're repeating, but that's the process that it's actually going through. So you see each question multiple times. So it's, you know, when we were kind of looking at this model, we recognize that that would be, you know, kind of create some confusion. So
I guess my only response is that I thought that the statement "fishing guides create conflict" was a misrepresentation of the issue.
let's hold on to those. So I was going to go through.
Well, that's what you asked, if we had input on.
Yeah, no, and I was going to go through kind of each one of these to make sure I understand how you guys interpreted them, because I'm not a professional survey creator, and I recognize that there are people who are professionals, and they really look and obsess about how they ask the questions. So I did my best, but it's not going to be, you know, 100% clear to everybody. It's not a scientifically valid survey. This was just the best guess. So I wanted to kind of go over and share the results, but also kind of understand when you saw this question, what were you thinking? Does that make sense? And so that'll get to wherever the guide one is on here. We'll get to that one. But so high-speed boating, how did you guys interpret that? Did you look at, was it just speed? Was it wake? Was it horsepower?
To me, it's everything.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I'd say all three.
Okay. And is that what you guys were thinking? Obviously speed. No. I kind of look at that and say, you know, speed's probably not the issue. It's either the wake or the horsepower. You know, speed part of the problem, but it creates lots of others. Rerunning a fishing location was number 2. And did everybody think that that was just rerunning a hole?
Yeah,
we're all good on there. This is another one that had some internal comments. What do you guys think of that? Or what were you thinking when you saw the conditions on other river drive conflict to the Siletz?
I just wasn't sure how pertinent it is to what we're actually talking about. I mean,
so when writing this question, we had comments at past rats that potentially, you know, the Siletz has a lot of fish. So people are coming from rivers that don't have a lot of fish and coming to the Siletz. So that was one factor. Then, like the LC, depending on where the fish are in the river, you know, you've got the public boat ramp in town, but then you got a lot of private boat ramps, a lot of docks. So it's hard to travel from the public dock very quickly. So that could be having, you know, driving people to Siletz versus fishing the LC. Does that make sense? And is that kind of what you guys were thinking when you were?
Personally, I took it as, if you look on this page here, there's several rivers that are restricted for motor use. So that would that would obviously drive people that wanna use motors to the sleds.
Okay. Yeah, other rules?
Even though they have good fishing up there, but they wanna use their motors. So
Okay.
they come to the sleds.
So when you were looking at it, these two were kind of a similar question. That gas motors cause problems.
Sure.
I think that one was pretty self-explanatory. Let me know if anybody disagrees. Number of fish create conflicts. What were you guys thinking when that ranked pretty high? Not enough fish in the river. I guess not too many fish in the river, but enough fish in the river that it's known to have good fishing. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's what I thought is primarily we're talking steelhead fishing and the low numbers of steelhead. People are fighting for the few bites that are to be had out there. So that if everybody was catching their limit by 10 a.m., there wouldn't be any problem. But the steelhead numbers are low, historically speaking.
How are they in other coastal rivers? I'll look at you, Chris.
Well, I think what he's referring to is probably the number of hatchery released steelhead
Catch fish.
rivers to the north. You have quite a few more hatcheries, steelhead released into the rivers, juveniles. And so all other factors being equal, yeah, it's easier to get mosquitoes.
Easier to get here than what other rivers?
There's more hatchery fish available.
On the sleds?
No,
On other
rivers,
rivers?
rate releases.
Yeah, they put what 50,000 winter smolts in the Siletz and 150,000 winter smolts in the Nestucca and the Alsea and the Wilson. So more steelhead smolts, hatchery smolts would help give us more fish, and so that then it would reduce the numbers of fish create conflict question.
So if there's so many more fish on nearby rivers, why are fishermen choosing Siletz over the other rivers?
Because it's
Like I just said, there's motor restrictions on a lot of these rivers.
Okay.
I would say that probably there's an influence of a good highway coming in from the valley to that general area, whereas like if you want to go farther north, you've got a longer drive. So yeah, there's a lot of weekend warriors that are gonna say, hey, I'll just go to the Siletz. It's an hour and 20-minute drive from Corvallis, or hour and 50-minute drive from Eugene, or the other choice is the LC or the Halem, Nestucca going farther north. So
I would point out that because of the good fishing for hatchery fish on rivers like the Wilson, Stucca, those are very busy rivers during winter steelhead season. You know, electric motors are allowed, but no gas motors.
So part of it is
More fish draws more anglers.
more fish travel, but people are choosing to come to the Siletz because it's either more convenient. That's where they fish. That's where they like going, not primarily because of fishing's great.
It's beautiful too. I mean, it's the most scenic river on the coast, so it's just being out there, if you don't get a bite, it's a beautiful day. Waterfalls everywhere. There's nothing else like it on the coast. So a lot of people like to go just for the aesthetic effect.
Okay. Any comments on the electric power? And again, not where it ranks, but any questions or, was this taken, interpreted different? I think it's probably pretty easy, like the gas motors. Fishing methods create conflict? Does that create any confusion or? Okay. Early mornings, late evenings, and we're getting into the ones that, probably aren't priority. Fishing. So let's go to Angela's question. So I think there have been comments that, fishing guides are using the motors. fishing guides, these are my words, not necessarily how it was presented, but it's easier for me to use my words. Essentially, the methods that fishing guides use kind of dictate the fishing on the river. So if somebody doesn't want to fall in line with what the guides are doing, that creates problems. And it's not saying guides are bad. It's just if you have, 20 fishing guides all doing the same thing in unison, and somebody wants to go out of that cycle, it can be difficult. And, depending on what the guides are doing, some anglers may not be able to do that as efficiently, or that's not their preferred method. So that's kind of where that question was coming from. Does that make sense, Angela?
Well, I just thought it was disingenuous. It's like motoring boat users create conflict. Behaviors of boat users create conflict. It's not just the guides that are doing some of these behaviors that are creating conflict.
We've heard a lot of bad behaviors about guides,
Yes, we have,
agency-wide.
but that's not the real, I mean, that's not, I think it's just a misrepresentation of the issue a little bit, because it's all boat users. Some of them are professional guides. There seems to be a high proportion of guides using that river. Yes. But
No.
other people also are behaviors.
Yeah.
And
and
I
that's
just
what
didn't
this
like the
bears
way
out.
it was worded. I
Okay.
just thought it was,
Yeah, but I think, this bared out that it's not the guides causing the problems. And so, clearly the biggest concern was the high speed, boats going at high speeds.
Well, I think that's unfair because again, it's up to interpretation of what high speed means. Like I said, it encompasses all three. It's wake, it's speed, it's all those things, there's only a couple of those that really hone in on what the issue is due to perception of the question, right?
Yeah.
Of what it is. Rerunning a fish location, you have to have a motor, you don't have to, you can row it. There's a lot that you can't. And so, that's just where it was what did it mean to you the most? You were hung up on that.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, kind of along that same lines, I thought this was very interesting. To me, these are kind of two sides of the same coin, because what I understood is that with motors, it gives people the ability to rerun holes however long or however many times they want. If we got rid of motors, then we were going to have the anchoring. And so when people come down, they're going to anchor in a hole and sit there, potentially all day until they get their fish. And so it's just kind of a surprise to me to see these so far apart. And good, bad, I'm not saying one or the other. What I like about this is, the way that the survey was taken, I'm somebody who, when I have an opinion and I see the list, I'm going to prioritize based on the outcome I want to see. This makes it more difficult to do that because you don't know what the questions are in advance, and you kind of focus on, A versus B, 1 versus 2, not, how did I answer that in relation to all the questions I've seen. So I like the tool. And I just think it's an interesting result, and really haven't had a lot of time to understand. And what I got that you guys don't see is, I don't know who responded or when they responded or what their answers were, but I get a report saying participant 1, they answered, one way. And then participant 2, they answered, differently. And so I can go through and say, well, this was 4 people thought this was one of their, top 3 issues, where, this was kind of more middle tier, but one person thought it was their number 1 issue. So maybe this ranking isn't as, to me, the ranking's not important. It's kind of understanding kind of the bell curve to see where it fits with everybody, just so we can kind of go back to the board and say, yeah, this, I'm just picking one here randomly. This is kind of mid-level, but most people had it pretty high on their list. It wasn't their number one issue, but it was pretty high. So maybe we need to look at this issue more than we need to look at this issue. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that process?
It doesn't make sense to me though, Alan. Here's why. The number one thing on the list, there's been, here we're October 23rd, there hasn't been a single boat running at high speed above Morgan since January 1st.
Well, this may be something the board sees and says, well, that's an easy fix. We can just put a horsepower limit, a speed limit, a slow no wake to address this issue. And I'm not suggesting that's the way we're going. I'm just saying, this list is gonna, the board will look at this and figure out how they want to go forward. So I just want to make sure to classify everything in a couple different ways. So the board can look at this list, and if they want to say, well, let's address the top issue, that's going to be their choice. But I also want to say, well, maybe early morning, this one really is a priority. It doesn't look like it on the chart, but it is a priority. So maybe you want to consider that one as well. And
but some of those are a daily conflict issue, so to speak. But the high speed boating it's like maybe 1 month a year. The rest of the year, it's not an issue. And so that's why I don't understand how that could be the biggest factor in people's
If
mind.
you're, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you're a landowner, you sure the hell know it lasts more than a month.
yeah.
It could last 4 months.
So I think Mike, brings up a good point. Your experience on the river is different than his experience on the river. Both are valid experiences. So, we're not making the rules in this room. We're making suggestions to the board on what they should be looking at, what's going to be important to this group. And again, that's kind of why I want to go look at some of the individual responses and say, this one's more of a mid-level, but a lot of people are concerned about it. So kind of at the beginning, we talked about what the RAC was going to do. And, somebody had asked if we were going to vote on a single recommendation, and I don't think we're going to have a single recommendation. So we're just trying to gather what you guys tell us and score it, rank it, sort it, resort it, and give it to the board and let them try and figure out, and my job is to lay it out in a way that it is more understandable. But they're based on some of this information. They're going to look at what's important to the members of the RAC and take that into consideration as they move forward.
So you say that things that are of importance or concern to the RAC, but this list was not created by the RAC. This list was created by Marine Board staff based on your understanding or interpretation of what you think the RAC's key issues are and your own words in defining that or describing that. And so I think it's not a very good reflection of what the RAC concerns really are.
Okay.
Like fishing methods create conflict. Well, fishing methods is so vague, you don't even know what you're referring to. Is it gear? Is it like rangefinder, fish finder use? Is it behavior of the fishing public? What is it? There's nothing on there about impacts to landowners along the river. And that's been an ongoing theme throughout our discussions. So I just think it's a little off base.
Okay. And I appreciate the input. So based on this, is anybody surprised with where things ranked? And maybe, are there factors that aren't on this list that need to be on this list?
If you want my opinion, I think the fishing guides create conflict is that number's too low.
Okay.
Because when they run in a group or several guides are all floating together, they cause conflict to the boats that don't have motors or the boats that are anchored up or the guys on the bank and they drift right through your water. There's a lot more there than it looks. I know. I've been on the river my whole life.
Anybody else?
Just related to the survey, there's like nobody uses an electric motor anymore out there. I'm not sure why that question's even on there. You'll see one or two boats all winter. Everybody's got a gas powered motor. But I mean, electric motors they don't do anything. They don't cause any problem. They're not as powerful as a gas powered motor is.
Can I say
Yeah,
something about
and just
that?
So I agree with you, Jay. This was surprising to me that gas and electric were so closely ranked together. I would have expected gas to be fairly high and motors not to be at the very bottom, but somewhere a little lower. But again, this isn't a scientifically based, survey. So, statistically relevant, I don't know. I'll get to you, Mike. I haven't forgotten you. So again, we'll look at some of the data underneath this to see how people voted and kind of help the board understand where the priority was.
My opinion on that, you can't put gas and electric together or separate them because now they're building electric motors that'll have the thrust of a gas powered motor.
So we talked about that early on. When we talk about, or when I'm talking about electric powered motors, I think I said, the speed record for an electric powered boat right now, I think it's 104 or 114 miles per hour. That's not what we're considering here. In our rules, when we do electric motor, it's operated at slow no wake speed. So these are, the Minn Kotas, the 30, 40, 50 pound thrust, not 50, 60, 100 horsepower electric. I recognize that issue. And we, if we limit the horsepower, it's going to be for all types of motors. If we limit speed, it'll be for all types of motors. So I don't think there's going to be a scenario where we say you can't have a gas motor, but you can have a, 75 horse electric motor.
That's what's gonna happen if you don't exempt them.
I'm saying from a rule perspective. In reality, yes, the technology is
That's right.
evolving, so there won't be a significant difference between gas and electric.
That's right.
For this purpose, electric means a trolling motor, a traditional trolling motor.
It's just like
And
what
they're in
happened.
the rules.
It's like what happened on Morgan Up. They recommended 15 horse or under.
So
They just took advantage of it.
we're not talking about the recommendation. The Marine Board wasn't involved in that. That was an organic thing. It doesn't have the backing of the Marine Board. So we're looking at what the Marine Board's gonna do. So
So that raises a question for me, number of fish create conflicts. That's something Marine Board has no control over at all, either from a regulatory standpoint or a practical standpoint. So I was confused why that question was in there. I think everyone would like more fish in our rivers, the Siletz and all others.
so
And so that was sort of, I wasn't sure why that was in here. And if you took that out, you'd see that gas and electric motors ranked right next to each other.
So we're really interested in what conflict exists on the river, mean, we do have ODF and W sit at the table. And once we're done with this process, there'll be ongoing discussions about, you know, the Siletz, and we'll communicate this with ODF and W. And, you know, give that to them if they decide they want to move forward with making changes. You know, we've given them some motivation potentially. I mean, I think it's interesting, you know, rerunning. That's probably not something OSMB can do. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. It's more of a fishing issue.
Well, you had talked about one-way traffic.
Yeah, no, I said maybe we can, maybe we can't. But this is definitely, there's components that are fishing issues. The number of fish is something that OSMB can't do. Fishing methods, again, not an OSMB issue. I think those were the main ones that, and those are all things that I heard from this rack. So that's part of the reason they're in there.
On the fishing methods create conflict, I'm kind of curious what people were thinking regarding that. Because fishing method could have something to do with rerunning a fishing location or use of gas powered motors while fishing. So maybe you could flesh that out a little bit.
So what were you guys thinking? You answered that. Were you thinking, you know, trolling, drifting, bobber dogging?
Everything that they comes, you know, that's, they're so broad that it is technology, it's gas motors. I mean, it's fishing methods is so broad that that's literally, you know, it's everything all encompassed into one. That's, for me anyway, that's what I was thinking. It's all of that. It's technology, it's motors, it's, you know, just everything that goes into a method.
So let's parse that out a little bit. If you compare methods being, you know, bait, bobber dogging, trolling, you know, I don't know the names of all the different methods, right? But, you know, more of how the water or how the hook is going through the hole.
Well, that's what, and that's, I think a lot of the confusion for the rack is,
Yeah.
it is that.
Do you
is,
think-
you know,
If we said you could only bobber drift or bobber fish on the Siletz, would that make a difference? Or is that irrelevant?
it's gonna be irrelevant. I mean, you know, because again, it goes to somebody's preferred technique. And so a guide is, you're gonna find a method or a technique, you know, we get out of method, you go with technique. You know, I think that would have been, you're gonna find a technique that your clients are proficient in, and then you're gonna exploit that technique. You know, some people can't side drift. You know, they can't feel the difference between a rock on their slinky or a bite. And so they're gonna lose them. They're gonna miss a lot of fish unless, you know, you're right on top of them. And so you're gonna put a bobber on them, you know, and so it's all up to the client or the person fishing of, you know, bobber fishermen are, you know, bobber and jig fishermen are bobber and jig fishermen. And they're, you know, the guys that are good at it are very good at it. But you know, you typically see they will only doing that one technique, right? Because that's where they're having their most success. That's why people have a favorite lure. It's their favorite lure because it's the one they're using all the time.
Right. Yeah. But are there any two methods out there that if you're side drifting and on bobber fishing, that just puts us in an inherent conflict?
Depends on who's holding the, yeah, because, you know, to side drift and bobber fishing is, they're not conducive. They're not, you know, if people are bobber fishing a hole, you're not going to go in there and side drift through it because you're going to operate your boat in a different manner. So you're going to disrupt the flow of the river by doing that. So that would create conflict.
So that was kind of my thought process in asking that question. And again, I'll own that I'm not a professional survey writer, so that's kind of why I wanted to have a discussion about what everything meant. Live scope, sorry, we were talking about that. Is that useful in a river of these depths, or do you need?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm not that familiar with the technology, so I don't know. if it's-
Do you know, it's anybody that has the live scope on
I
the
mean, I would say
drift
that's
boat?
relative to maybe like some deep holes in the fall, and you're not gonna run a live scope when you're winter steelhead fishing around. It's just not, it's not really, that's not realistic.
Garmin sells a unit specifically for drift boats.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, you
all
can-
in one, that's all in one convenient bag to be mounted on and off a boat.
If you get the three fishing guys, you guys ever seen anybody running a live scope for winter steelhead?
Not for winter steelhead. I've definitely been on some boats and done it for salmon though.
Sure, I can see like in the deeper holes, like starting here in a couple weeks. Yeah, I could maybe see that, but not for
So-
winter steelhead.
I'm not proposing banning live scope. That's way out of my bounds. But I mean, when I wrote the question, it was more fishing technique.
Well, just like Todd was saying, if you have a boat that's back trolling plugs and then somebody wanting to side drift, like those two can't fish really in the same hole.
So if ODF and W,
Hmm.
and I'm just pointing to Chris because he's got an ODF and W hat on.
No, I don't.
Not really, but, not him personally, but would it be advantageous to say that these are the acceptable methods on this river? Or is that the state coming in too hot and heavy and going way outside of our bounds?
It'd be like telling people to fly fish only now. Everybody's got their own method. They used to get along fine. In fact, 30 years ago, majority of the people ran plugs. Or side drifted, drift fishing, anchor drift fishing. Now, a lot of people are bobber fishing, so they tend to flow together. Usually all one way, but sometimes some
Right.
boats will
So
go back up.
To use your argument against you, boating technology's changed, so is fishing. So, if everybody was, plug fishing, that's probably not going to create a ton of conflict because everybody's using the same method. But now when you have, 10, 15, really popular techniques, maybe, plugs and side drifting isn't compatible. And so maybe we need to think about, maybe you do have side drift rivers, maybe you do have plug only rivers. We certainly have fly fishing only rivers, and I'm not suggesting that here. One of my favorite rivers is the Metolius, that's fly only. Various sections, of course. So there's examples of that. I don't have any input on whether we do that or not, but it's something, as this community moves forward, is that a discussion that needs to happen?
Well, I think you're talking about excluding user groups. And we're talking about gas and electric motors on the river that doesn't exclude any user group.
Yeah, no,
It's just a way to make it equitable for everybody, all user groups across the board. And so, it's a deflection argument
yeah,
to me. I mean, not just,
I'm not trying to deflect. I'm just trying to kind of broaden the scope and at least on this topic and say, if that is a significant source of conflict, maybe we really, as a state, need to be looking at that. I'm not saying boating's not a problem. I'm just saying, of the questions that were asked, we're just looking at those. I mean, clearly the number one is the high speed. On this 4 is gas. So those are certainly high priorities. And electric is pretty high as well. So yes, there are boating issues.
Yeah, I still feel like that fishing methods question is entangled in some of the more key things that we're discussing regarding motor use. And we wouldn't, well, let me put it this way, we generally won't regulate methods, side drifting, back trolling, those kind of things, unless there's a chronic suite of illegal activities going on, like snagging.
Yeah.
And that is the purview of ODFW, not the Marine Board.
Right.
So there's that. And I think too, the high-speed boating, I mean, that's almost a visceral response. Like, of course, high-speed boating is always a conflict because it just creates, I don't know. I didn't like this survey. I didn't think it was very useful, and I'm not sure what you're going to do with the data.
So, well, we'll get back to that. And are we done discussing? Okay, so can we go back to the front screen, Phil, just to get this blank? So one of the things, kind of looking back at the first meeting, what I really wanted to do, and I didn't do it well, and I want to go back to it. I want you guys to tell the board what you love about this river, not what the conflicts are, not what happened 20 years ago, what you love about this river today. Why do we need to protect it? I'm just going to go around the room. Nolan, do you want to start?
Sure.
And
This.
what do you love? What do you think the best use for the river is?
The best use? I mean, I think we're discussing it. Fishing and, reconnecting with nature is probably the number one use for me.
Is that a different question than what do you love about it?
I think the two kind of go hand in hand. I don't really fish the Siletz at least for winter steelhead. The big draw for me is not to like take fish home every day. I want to, myself and my clients, they could care less if they caught a hatchery fish or not. But encountering a steelhead in a beautiful coastal river, like Jay was saying, we have waterfalls coming in, big trees. There's a lot of the river that really you don't see houses or anything like that. I mean, aesthetically, it's gorgeous. I've fished a number of rivers in Oregon, a number of rivers in Washington. The Siletz ranks really high and one of just the prettiest, especially the upper couple floats, like Moonshine down to town. Some of the prettiest water to fish, and it's fun, active water. It's faster. Some spots you only get one shot, so you make a good cast, and there he is. That's really exciting.
With the faster, is that, and I don't mean this from an egotistical standpoint, but is it your opportunity to show your oarsmanship?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say your opportunity to, like, I don't fish from a motor. I do have one on my boat, but if I do rerun a hole, I go up, I shut it down, I get on the sticks, and then it's my turn to coach them into making a good cast and getting a fish. So oarsmanship and teaching abilities.
Okay. Mike? What do you love about the river?
Well, if I have to say it, my memory goes back a long ways on the Siletz, and it's a far cry than what it used to be. And if you think about your fond memories of how many fish used to run up that river, how many thousands and thousands of eels used to come up that river, the freshwater clam beds that used to be everywhere, and even the bears would eat on them. You don't see that no more. That's what I miss about the Siletz. It's a dying river.
So is there anything you love about the river today?
Right now, I just witnessed spawners right below my house, which is good to see. But there again, you get memories of when there were hundreds of spawners on that riffle. Now there isn't. There's a few. We got to protect this river. That's my goal.
I understand.
That's what I love about the Siletz. It has potential to be a damn good river.
That's what I want to hear. So just for the rest of you, that's what I'm trying to understand. So potential, I like that. Jerome?
I love how you can just show up and have so much diversity of scenery on this river. I mean, the upper floats, the lower floats. I mean, it's all pretty, and no matter where you're going to end up for the day, you're going to win. You're going to limit out on scenery, if nothing else. I also really love that it creates a lot of economic activity for the fishing guides. I mean, it creates a lot of economic impact for, I mean, the whole community. I mean, maybe not the community as much, but the state as a whole, you know, from everything that the guides are putting money into, staying, people come over. I know personally people that come from South Dakota, spend 4 or 5, 6 days on the river with multiple guides and fish every day. And that they're given that opportunity. So that's what I love about the river.
So is the best use of that answer at all? Because you did describe how it's used.
I think that's the best use is putting people on the river. That
Okay.
It's a state body of water that people need to get out and experience. I mean, that's the best use of it, putting people on the water and looking around and seeing nature and not staring at this all day. You know, I mean, that's my opinion.
Thank you.
And you can't because service isn't very good out there. So you couldn't if you
So
wanted
it
to.
forces you out of it, which I needed most of the time.
I agree with all these guys that you do limit out on scenery every time you fish there, whether you catch a fish or not. It's the most beautiful place I've ever fished. And so I love that aspect of it. I love the fact that it's the best salmon fishery on the Oregon coast. You know, the fall Chinook and coho runs are prolific. The runs aren't what they were 100 years ago, but they're still the best thing going today. And I love that I have the freedom out there to fish any way I want to fish, to try to catch as many fish in a day as I can. That's just how I'm wired. Try to catch the maximum amount of fish in one day. And so I'm free to use whatever tools or techniques or technology that are available and it's not for me. I take my friends and other people. I just want them to have a good time. And I'm not a guide. I just like to take people, and I want my friends and family to catch fish when they go. So I want to use the best equipment. And that's why I use the gas motors, because it's the best tool going to catch the most fish. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. And is use different than what you love about it, or the best use of it different than what you love about it? I'm not hearing inconsistencies. I just want to make sure.
I think like I said at our first RAC meeting back in August, I think it's great. The rules are great the way they are, because you have freedom to fish any way you want to fish. And that's important. If you take that freedom away and you say you can only fish this way or with these tools, then I know inherently I'm not going to be able to catch as many fish as I used to be able to catch.
Okay.
And that's no fun. You don't want to get bites, you know. So that's how I'm wired.
Okay. Angela?
So I grew up on the Siletz. My family grew up on the Siletz. And it was always a part of my world. And it nourished me as a child. It nourishes me now. It's part of my cultural identity. And it is a beautiful river. Absolutely, hands down. From the quality of the water, the color of the water, to the fish and the wildlife that it supports. And in my opinion, the highest and best use of that river is for the ecology that it provides to our fish, our wildlife, and our tribal culture. And so that, in my opinion, is the best use of that river.
Okay. Todd, your thoughts?
So mine as well, being a Siletz Travel member, is, the cultural significance of that river to me and my family is very important. And then how we protect it to ensure that 7 generations from now, we have what we have now, by not excluding any user groups, but how we can manage the use in a more productive way to protect that resource. Times are changing. And if we don't change with those times, then we can all agree it is a very beautiful river. It is my home river. We got put there, not by our choice. But when we talk about all the other rivers and the rules that they have, none of those rivers have the cultural significance that the Siletz have. Therefore, we're not talking apples to apples. And that's what makes the Siletz unique. How do we make recommendations where we're not excluding any user group? Is the task at hand, right? And so, you know, the conflict is, you know, again, it's times are changing. We have to change with those times. I think it's important to what we're doing. So what I love about the river is how it nourishes my soul. That's where I go to replenish my inner battery, if you will. I don't have to have a rod in my hand. It can be simply getting a couple handfuls of crawdads for lunch or for dinner, and just really enjoying the beauty of it. And so, yeah, that's, you know, again, one and the same. I think that question is pretty much the same question. Just.
And did I hear kind of a similar response? What Mike said is the potential for seventh generation. Is that kind of a similar concept?
Well, I don't want to speak for Mike, but but yes, it's
not speaking for him, but is my interpretation kind of, is that a similar concept?
yeah, is, you know, we'll get proactive into ensuring that for generations to come, not just for me right here, right now, but for generations to come. You know, the ODF and W are bound to rules that I don't quite understand. But I trust that they have their best, you know, our best interest in mind when they release what fish where. But there's so much out of it that is out of our control. Mother Nature, ocean conditions, the salmon treaty, you know, there's a list of things that are just so far out of our control that we have to start looking at what we can control and how to make it better for everybody across the board. And there's getting to be just a severe disconnect between the haves and have-nots now that it's just not, like I said in the beginning, it's just not equitable to every user group. You know, it got brought up that we need motors for people with disabilities, and there has not been one talk about how we make boat ramps more accessible for people with disabilities. But yet we're going to use people with disabilities as facility person. So, but yet we're going to say we need motors for people with disabilities. I find it atrocious. You know, I mean, it's just my own personal, opinion. I think everybody's points are valid. I'm not here to discredit anybody's life experience. I'm not here to 100% say your life experience doesn't have value. It does. It's just how do we come together to say this is worth protecting. Across the board, everybody says it's the most beautiful river in the state, but yet we're hung up on using gas motors on the prettiest river in the state. Makes no sense to me. You know, I mean, I want to catch as many fish as I can as well. I mean, there's not a fisherman sitting in this rack that doesn't tell you they want to catch every fish they can every day. It's, you know, that's just how, like Jay said, how we are wired. But like Nolan said, there's a lot of fishermen that just because I don't kill a fish doesn't mean that day wasn't a success. And so, you know, that's my.
So Chris, I'm going to give you the option because you're awkward because you represent ODF and W. I don't know that ODF and W has a love of the river.
Well,
intrinsic love.
I would say we do.
Okay.
Maybe not the love in the exact same way, but I've been impressed with sort of the level of passion that the Siletz brings to folks on the rack and others we've heard from. Clearly it's special, and most of the folks here, of course, have lifelong experiences on the Siletz. And I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that, you know, Siletz provides such a wide variety of outdoor recreational opportunities.
Okay, got any input?
So I spend about 6-7 months on the river a year between winter steelhead and fall salmon time. And like Jerome said, a lot of it's just getting people out there, taking that many people. A lot of people I take, they come back and fish in their own boats and join the river and see how, like everyone said, how gorgeous it is, and realize how many fish there are. And they keep coming back, and then they take their friends. So it's just kind of a trend that keeps going. And I think the best, well, like I said, the best use. Why I love it is like I can fish however I want and not be told where I can and can't fish and what I can and can't do. That's why I like it.
Thank you. That little kumbaya, but I think that's important. I mean, I want the board to recognize the passion surrounding this issue. So that's, like I said, I tried to get that on the first meeting, but that was my failure. So I want to come around again and try and do it better. And I think it went a lot better. So I appreciate everybody in doing that. I think it's important. I think it'll be impactful to the board members. So thank you. Could we go to the timeline? So this is kind of what you were asking Angela about what's coming next. So next week we have a board meeting. At that board meeting, I'm just going to be giving the board an update of what we've done. I will not have any recommendations. I'm not providing them the survey results. I'm just kind of going through the process to date. December 15th, we're having formal tribal consultation with the tribe, and that's between members of the board, our tribal liaison, our director, and the Siletz tribe. I don't know who's coming, doesn't matter. But we're required by law to do this, but it's the right thing to do. And so we pride ourselves and strive to improve our relationships with all the tribes in Oregon. And so that's important to us. So early January, so based on everything we've talked about, based on the survey, I may use the survey again, but what I want to do is I want to come up with some proposed rules. I'm going to send those proposed rules to you guys. And I want your input about, how to word them. What am I missing? If there's, the rules that I offered, if there's tweaks that need to be made to those rules, let me know. If I'm missing some rule that we need to consider, add a rule, and then I'll be sending it back out in a survey. And my goal is similar to what I plan to do with this current survey, is present the top ones to the board and say, these are the ones floated to the top. But I'll be transparent with the board and say, here's what I initially proposed to the RAC members. Here's the changes. Maybe, rule, the top rule that got 3 votes for number 1, but then everybody else hated it. And I don't know exactly how the calculations work on this survey, so I don't know if that's possible or not. But conceptually, if it's high on the list because there's a few members that skewed it that way versus what the majority of people thought, I'm going to disclose that to the board. I'm just being trying to be transparent with you and them so that they understand how that came about. They'll see all the rules. So even if I say, here's the top 3 that the RAP came up with, they'll have the opportunity to look at everything else, and they'll get to decide whether they want to go with something that the RAC agreed with or something the RAC didn't agree with. It's the nature of the beast. So, take those in January, we meet with the board again. And we're gonna ask them, you know, which direction do we go? So up until the January board meeting, we won't have any official proposed rules. They're gonna tell us, you know, maybe they'll say, we're not willing to ban electric motors, just an example, not suggestion. If they say, don't include that as part of the rule package, we won't include that as part of the rule package. If, you know, that's the type of thing they're gonna do. Based on that, staff will come up with a proposed rule. Part of our tribal consultation is they get to see it first. So we'll send that to them. Go ahead to the next slide. Then in April, we'll present the draft rule to the board to vote on. If they approve that, we'll open a public comment period. The comment period is a minimum of 21 days. We have the option of doing a public hearing by state rules. We are going to do a public hearing. We're going to do one here in Newport, and then we haven't figured out where the second one's going to be, but it'll be around our office, Corvallis, somewhere in the valley, so we can get as, you know, target the people who use the river the most. And the public hearings are an opportunity. I think one will have board members here. I'm not sure yet. Okay. We're going to talk to the board about whether they want to participate in these. But there'll be opportunities for public comment. And just remember, you guys are still part of the public. So if what comes out of the RAC you don't agree with, or you do agree with, you can provide additional comments directly to the board through these processes. And then in January, or excuse me, July, based on input, the board could approve. So go ahead, fill the next one. Now, in April, if they don't like the draft rules that I came up with, and they do make significant changes, if it's wordsmithing, we don't need to go back out for public comment. But if they change the substance of the rule, we have to go back out first to tribal consultation so they can see what the change was. Then we'll present them with the board with the second draft rule. And then we have the public comment section. At that point, we may or may not have a public hearing. That will depend on how significant the change is. And if we get input that people want to have more of an opportunity to have an in-person opportunity to comment. I believe by state rule, if there's more than, is it 7? 10 people request a public hearing, we're required to have a public hearing. So that one may or may not happen. And then October, we should present the final draft to the board, and they will have the opportunity to approve that. And the board always has the option to approve a rule, modify a rule, or reject the rules altogether. So if we get to here and the board still isn't comfortable, they could say, we're not going to make rules at this time. And then the process stops. They may say, we still don't like your rule. So we'd go through another round of staff making some changes, presenting those to the tribes, open it up for public comment, option for public hearing, and go through a board vote again. So I don't think that's going to happen a third time. I don't know. We may have to take a couple shots at this before we get it close enough to where the board's comfortable to move forward with. Our goal is to have rules in place for the 26-27 fishing season. So Angela, did that kind of get back to the question I said we table for a second?
Well, it doesn't clearly define the role of this committee going forward. You didn't have any meetings in November, December, or
So
what happens after draft rules are presented to the
can we go back,
board.
Phil?
So that's one of the questions I had is this particular group of
So
folks.
early January. So after the tribal consultation, that's where I'm going to present you guys with several different options for rules.
So that's the next time we're meeting. We're not meeting in November or December.
No. So we're gonna take a break, digest everything, do the tribal consultation. Based on the tribal consultation, I'll draft some rules. I'll present the rules to you guys for comment, then we'll do the survey to try and figure out what makes sense. So we talked about at the beginning. The Rule Advisory Committee is just an advisory committee. They don't have the authority to tell the board what the rule's gonna be. The board retains that authority. So once we make some recommendations, we fulfilled our role.
Then we're done.
Just a couple questions. I mean, one, can you just explain as an overall, like, so I can understand, what are the public meeting rules in Oregon? So like you have a December 15th meeting, that's a formal tribal consultation. How does that work as far as public meeting laws?
So the tribal
How about
consultation,
if I come in on this?
she's our
Okay.
tribal liaison, so.
Yeah, so, state of Oregon is required to do tribal consultation with Oregon's 9 federally recognized tribes. These are not a public disclosure. We are meeting with our chair, vice chair, director, and myself with designated people from the tribes. That is a government to government discussion. We are required to do it through law. We're required to do it through executive order, through agency policy. It is what we do as the state of Oregon. That is part of our business. These meetings are, think of it, the way it was explained to me when I started doing this is if you were working with Canada and Russia, trying to have a diplomatic discussion, that is not open to the public. That is the hierarchy of things. And that is what we are doing. We are respecting their sovereignty as a nation, and we are having that formal consultation. Our board members at their next meeting, they can talk. Our chair and our vice chair can talk about things associated with that meeting, but the meeting itself is not a public meeting.
Okay, so leads me to my next question. Is there opportunity for other user groups to have meetings with Marine Board staff?
So, on the road, we did a work session. As staff, we think that went well. We're gonna talk to the board about doing that potentially. They have the final say whether they do that again or not. But in that, they would invite, or what we did at the road is we invited specific user groups. The board did. They chose the ones they wanted to hear from, and they had a conversation. We incorporated that into a public hearing. So the first part of the morning was the work session. The second part of the day and all afternoon was a public hearing. So the work session is conversations, and that's a public process. So most
Is there
people.
is there a formal process to present that to the board to say, hey, there's other user groups that don't want to have an opinion here that may not be as fully represented on this board? Is there a process to ask the board that? Because if that, you're saying if they got to approve it to start, then there's got to be a process to ask them. If that comes from you or a formal petition, I don't know.
Do you have?
When we did the road, the board actually asked for that.
Okay.
From staff.
Okay.
So they had the opportunity to ask for that, and we feel like that went well, and I think they felt like that went well, so that may very well be something that they ask for again.
Every board meeting is open to the public. Anybody can show up and provide comment. So if somebody wants to come to the board meeting and request it, they can do that. You need to sign up in advance for online.
Yeah, if you want to join our meeting online for specifically this next board meeting, please email me and I can get you set up how to join online. If you want to come in person, just show up.
And the meeting's in Bend.
It is in Bend.
So, where's the one?
Taylor, it's at our office.
So staff like that process. I think it worked well for the board. So our goal is to bring that up with the board, but I can't tell you what the board's decide.
Okay. I mean, I would think it would be at least a, you know, an ask from staff to go present an opinion from the RAC, at least some members of it, that there may be other, at least give an opportunity to sit down, you know, at a table together from other user groups, just these 8 people.
So in the rules here, organizations can come and make presentations. Typically, the way those public hearings work is the board or staff, depends on what the board wants to do with that, is running the hearing. It's all recorded. So each individual will have 2 to 3 minutes typically, opportunity to present whatever information they want. Like on the road, we were presented with various documents, studies, binders, written testimony, and they discussed what the highlights of those documents, or some people just came forward and said, you know, here's my opinion. So the public meetings are really an open forum for anybody to come provide the information they want to provide. So absolutely, if, for example, Siletz Anglers Association wanted to send a representative to a public hearing, they absolutely can. If the tribes want to send somebody to the public hearing, they absolutely can. And any other interested parties.
Alan, I got a question.
Yeah.
Back in 2022, y'all, the state and the tribe had a new rule regarding the fish, you know, the harvesting of fish and all that. And when that was in the process of being made, the state put out a notice of proposed rulemaking, including a statement of need and financial impact. And in that proposal, they talked about how the public was going to be affected by a proposed new rule. And it also talked about the effect of the new rule on small businesses. And I was just curious if that'll be done.
Yes.
For this also.
So could you go to the next slide, Phil? So when the board approves the first draft, we file it with the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State requires us to complete the form, and that's the information that's on the form that we need to complete. And so I'll be going out, talking with various folks to understand the financial impact and going through that to create that form.
So repeat, can you say that again? When will those that are financially impacted be able to talk to you?
So when the board approves the draft, based on that approval, we file the proposed notice of rulemaking. I forget exactly what the form's called. Okay. We provide the draft rule, but there's essentially a cover page that says, here's how, here's the impacted parties, what the purpose of the rule, what it's attempting to accomplish, the financial impact for small business. So that gets filed with the Secretary of State. I'll reach out to some, to understand how to answer those questions accurately, but that's all subject to public comment. And so when we file that, that opens the written comment period. And so if you think I got it wrong and you're a member of the small business community, your comments can be directed not only to the rule, but to the justification or the analysis of the rule. And the public hearing, you can bring that up at the public hearing as well, if you wanted, provide written and verbal testimony.
Cause we touched on this back in August, only once in the first meeting, but Grant Shealy stood up in the comments afterwards and talked about how when the river's high in the wintertime, some of the best fishing happens. And it's really physically hard to row the river when the water's at 7 or 8 feet. And they would only be able to do it like 3 days a week instead of 5 or 6 days a week. And I know other people, other guides that have bad wrists and shoulders and stuff, and
So you're presuming we have a rule.
right.
So I don't know what I can't say the impact of the rule until I know what the rule is. And so once we understand the rule,
I got you.
then we can figure out
Okay.
what the impact is, and I can't do the cart before the horse. So
Thank you.
I understand your comments, but
Yeah.
we're not there yet. Does that make sense, everybody?
Sure.
Okay, you guys are sick of me, so Phil gets to come up and talk about the next topic. Are you ready, Phil?
Sure. Thanks, Al.
So you gotta think of this as I was the opening act. Use your headline.
Great, no pressure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Phil Hedsmith. I'm the boating policy and environmental coordinator for the Marine Board. I'm Alan's team with the Marine Board. Most of you have had some contact with Jennifer Cooper. She's the rules coordinator for the Marine Board and the executive assistant to Director Larry Warren. And over here on my right is Janine. You just met her. She's a tribal liaison and the boating facilities manager for the Marine Board. And this is Brian Polson, who is the boating safety program manager, joining us today.
And also.
Thank you. So everybody wears a lot of hats in the Marine Board. So what I want to talk to you today about, as we move forward, as Alan pointed out, if there are going to be new rules for the Siletz, we won't be seeing anything until November 1st of 2026. Right. So between now and then, for the fall and winter season, are there things that the users of the Siletz can put in place, can help educate, help bring to light, to help avoid conflict, to encourage enjoyment of this river? We've heard from everybody around this table about how much appreciation and love and a deep passion for this body of water. Okay, what are things that we can do moving forward to try to help foster that and and avoid conflict on the river? And I want to give you an example. Are you familiar with wake surfing? Heavy boats, bring ballast, ready to surf, people surf by them. Well, it's been controversial in certain areas. The people, the wake surfers have caused conflicts with other river users or other users on the water, with landowners, etc. Well, through efforts with people that are wake surfers, for people that enjoy that sport, and with the Marine Board and other community members, they have worked with them to help reduce the conflict on the waterway. So like Lake Billy Chinook over in Central Oregon, they've had people that wanted to just ban those. The Marine Board has pushed on a campaign called Protect Your Sport. So there are other lakes around the state where we provided signage. We're making sure that people are utilizing those waterways in the correct way and avoiding conflict with other users on the water or landowners on that body of water. So what I wanted to ask, are there things that we can put in play, an educational campaign with suggestions from the RAC on how to move forward for the fall and winter fishing seasons? So is that things like only going fishing one direction on the river? Is it limiting runs on holes? Is it limiting types of fishing on the river? So this is an open discussion. I'm looking for your input. If there is some buy-in on this, we would like to work on trying to build some campaign around this, working with the outfitter guides, working on social media to try to get that messaging out between now and next time potential rules are in place there. Engineer.
For clarification, I want to make sure that everybody's understanding.
Yeah.
These aren't rules.
Yep.
These would be more of like a stewardship and etiquette, to help get through this next year pending any determination by the board. Is there something like that that the RAC could come up with as a way to help educate folks or promote behaviors that we can help work on?
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah.
I'd like to comment on that. Right now, it's recommended 15 horse or under on the Siletz River from Morgan Park up. Right now, let's just say no motors above 15 horse shall be allowed above Morgan Park until next year as of November 1st.
So, sorry,
No, jump in there.
this is more. No, stay up here.
No, no,
Okay,
I'm not running away yet.
that's a rule. We can't make rules. We can't have recommendations that are rules. So these are, you already have the recommendation for 15 horse and under. So repeating that's not going to change until we have the authority to make rules. So this is more, can we, can the Siletz Anglers Association address their members and, use their sphere of influence to say, look at how you're fishing, look at who's around you, look at, bank anglers, people anchoring, people drifting. Try and come up with some ideas, use the influence that we have in this room to try and lower the temperature of the room. I know exactly where you're coming from, but that's been done. It's not going to change if we put up a new sign.
We got plenty of signs out there, gas motors discouraged. Nobody abides by that.
I understand. So we're not going to do that. We're trying to come up with some different solutions until we have the authority of a rule.
Bro,
Is there any ability to, at least for the next, some of the hot button issues going to come up in the next three to 4 weeks? Like this, the big motors, big boats with motors is going to be not prolific, but it's going to be at its pinnacle the next 3 or 4 weeks. Are there some areas that of cultural significance to the tribe possibly that you could say, hey, in the next month, can you guys just chill out in this certain area? This means a lot to us. This means that this area means a lot to us. Please respect the fact that we're coming to you and asking for a certain section of the river that everybody just chill out. Or, moving forward into the winter steelhead season, can we say under 3 feet or whatever CFS, let's do our best to voluntarily not run motors for that day under these certain conditions.
these are all great suggestions. It's just, can we get enough buy-in?
Well, and I think we're asking more of what you guys can do. We'll buy in, or if we can buy in, we will buy in. But we're trying to push it out to the user groups to say, can we figure out a way to organically address some of the changes? We can't, if it's not a rule, we can't drive it, but we can help amplify what these individuals, what these groups would like to present. And so this isn't rules. This isn't going to become rules. This is just, is there something we could join together and make some suggestions that would benefit the river?
I think we have a year basically to look at how can we act, or how can everybody act to, like you say, lower the temperature a little bit and maybe make it an applicable outcome that everybody's happy with. And so, I only speak for myself, but I think there's got to be some kind of, we've been doing this, 4 months now, we're basically at square one. In my opinion, is there any ability to come up with a short-term suggestion on all of our behalves on how to act for the next year? that's not absolutely no motors or 100% motors.
This is just for the RAC members at this time, sir.
We will have public comment at the end.
How about a sign that says at the boat ramps that says all user groups are welcome. Please be courteous of other user groups.
I think it already says that.
Does it?
On etiquette, yeah.
I mean, I would say that as the gas motor use has increased over the last 15 years, I mean, it's basically the irresponsible use of the gas motors that got us here in the first place. So, I mean, I understand why guys will use them aggressively at times. I mean, we're all competing for the same resource out there, but sometimes courtesy can be forgotten when you're in a rush to try to get to another hole or make another pass before another boat comes down and gets that fish. I know in the low water, I've been a few times where, you don't have a lot of river, and if you're just stuck using your motor and you're motoring downriver, you'll just motor right over the top of where somebody is fishing, and that's where the conflict and how people get fired up about this issue. If you were nicely fishing a spot and then somebody motors right on through it, that's pretty disrespectful. As opposed to get off your motor, float around them, then continue on. Those types of things, but that is often and easily forgotten when people are in a rush. So, I mean, it's a super nice gesture to like, oh, let's all find some nice little agreement and sing Kumbaya. And I think that stuff gets forgotten real fast.
Yeah. And going back to the wake surfing, I mean, they've definitely have helped manage their own bodies of waters and, essentially self-regulate themselves on that without having additional impact.
They were able to figure it out.
Yeah, so far.
So, Nolan, I think, so we regulate guides. We have a guide newsletter. We can send a message out to the guides saying, hey, be aware and respectful of other fishing. That's the kind of thing we're looking to do. If, the guide community can get together and maybe have a conversation, say, how can we collectively turn the volume down? And I'm going to pick on the Siletz Anglers Association because I know a lot of people look at their websites way more than probably the Marine Board website. If they could put out a similar message, if we can kind of come up with a unified message that everybody is amplifying, that's what we're trying to do. And that's when we do your protect your sport. We usually get like homeowners associations, the cities or counties, try and get as much buy-in as possible. So when the user's out there, they're going to say, oh, look, the Marine Board is on board with this. The local community is on board with it. The local guides, the more names to say, this is how we fish, or this is how we use this river. That's kind of what we're trying to get to before we can get rules in place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think we're trying to figure out that message.
Right.
That's what our goal today is. And try and get some buy-in from various groups to be willing to use their influence to push that message as well.
Angela, I think you'd mentioned before some of the private tribal access bank areas. Members were getting like motored right on through. So something to suggest to boat users, especially motor users, is like if you're going to go buy anybody on the bank, shutter down and float by would be the courteous, instead of motoring through the hole.
To safely do it, you'd have to get on the oars.
Well, they were designed to be used with those.
Okay, so limit motor use with, bank.
I just think start with some area that people have that they can somewhat focus on. If this is an area of significance to a group that is upset with what you're doing, bring it to people's attention. Maybe that'll somebody will be like, oh yeah, if that was my house, like Mike's, or if that was, I might be upset too. But what percentage of the general people using this river actually even know or care, but it's never been brought up to them.
We articulate that. I mean, I'm trying to think about how we can put this in a soundbite, you know, to be able to put it out to the Anglers Association, out to the outfitter guides.
Well, I'm not opposing it, so I'm not opposing motor. So I don't know what those sites may be for the user groups, and for other than what I understand in front of Mike's house.
I would say, you could recommend going downstream only. Be courteous, go downstream, don't go upstream. That'd solve a hell of a lot of problems.
So I think we've got some things we can work with. And I think it's more of a general courteous to bank anglers, other motor or other boats, whether they're drift, motorized. Because it sounds like, you know, if somebody's anchored and they're fishing a hole, be courteous to them. And if it, you know, same thing for a drift boat, if somebody's, was it back bouncing? What's
Back trolling.
Back trolling.
Plugs.
You know, if somebody's in the hole doing that, a drift boat can certainly mess with somebody on board. So I think it's a responsibility of all users, not just one user, to be courteous. And, you know, I've heard stories of bank anglers yelling at boats as they go by as well. So I think, you know, a lot of people are acting bad, not everybody for sure, but I think the message needs to be applied across the board, because I don't think there's any particular bad actors in each user group, no bad user groups. Does everybody kind of agree with that? Is that something, if we put together a sign, a message that you guys, if we send it out to you, is that something that you can share with, or you'd be willing to share with your, within your sphere of influence? And I don't, we can put that out in the guide newsletter. Is that something the tribes would be willing to share with tribal members? You know, Siletz Anglers Association share with their members, or are we just way off in left field at this point?
Repeat what you want to share again, Alan.
So the goal is we unify. You know, we can work on a message, but if we just put that message on our website, you know, we're going to get a few people looking at it, and it's probably not going to be effective. You know, if you are willing to share that with you within your sphere of influence, and you know, I don't know if you're a Facebook, you know, Twitter, you know, whoever, who, you know, I know you're affiliated with Castro Kids. I don't know if that's appropriate for that organization, but you know a lot of people. We've got the guide community, we've got the Siletz Anglers community. You know, if everybody's agrees to a unified message, that we could all amplify that message, maybe we'll get some responses, or more responses, than if we just come up with some guidance.
Yeah, we just need to figure out the message.
So are you good with a generic, I shouldn't say generic, but an equally courteous message saying, bank anglers, motorized boaters, non-motorized, all be aware of other users and be respectful of how they're trying to enjoy their day, just like you're trying to enjoy your day.
That's what I shared 5 minutes ago, something like that.
What's it gonna hurt?
Let's start for sure.
We recognize we're the state, we're slow. So this is to try and come up with an interim until we can get different rules in place.
I believe there's already signage on every boat launch. River etiquette. Be respectful of your bank anglers.
River etiquette means something different to everybody out there.
That's true, that's true.
Maybe a little more specific message on,
What river etiquette is.
where your wake goes, what the,
So I think probably we can work on a message, send it out to you guys, and hopefully you guys can amplify it. Am I on track, Janine? She's good at this stuff. Right? You've got input as well.
Yeah, so I'm Janine Belek. I'm our boating facilities program manager, and I do a lot of community meetings and working with groups. We know there's the etiquette sign, but we're offering to help with our bandwidth, your bandwidth, to help get messages out there, right? We've heard how everyone in this room loves that river. It means something to you. So let's try to come up with messaging to have other people love it and respect it in the same way. And that's kind of what we're asking. Let's try to pull our resources together and get that message out for this year while we're going through this process. We can't guarantee it's going to make a difference, but it's better than doing what we've been doing. Let's at least try as a group to come up with something to help translate that and hope that we see some changes while we're finishing that process. That's what we're asking. If you tell us to pound sand that it's not worth it, then we don't. We're throwing this out as a way to try to get through this next year while we translate it. So Alan and Phil are offering to kind of come up with some language to share with the RAC and have you say, like this, don't like this, can we tweak this? Put it in a nice little package and get it out to where we can share it. A lot of times you put something like that on some logos out there, it starts to have some weight and some passion behind it. And that's what we're asking. Is it worth it to this RAC to try to go through that? Thumbs up, smiles, give us some idea of whether you like it, because it's really going to be them putting this together and trying to help with that messaging.
Yeah, can you email us some samples?
Yeah.
And
100%.
And I know you said the state works slow, but I would say time is of the essence because we're coming into the next 5 months of where this is all applicable. The rest of the 7 months of the year, none of this really matters.
We recognize that.
Yeah, probably starting next week.
Probably starting next week after what this weekend is gonna bring.
They've got no lives. They're going to be pushing this out and getting it out to you guys as soon as possible because we know time is of the essence. And that's why we were bringing this forward as an idea to try to do something right now.
So I think this was what we had on the agenda for today. Do any of the RAC members have topics or comments that we want to discuss before we open it up to public comment?
I signed off on the comment. I'd like to bring that up right now if I could.
Absolutely, that's what I'm asking.
I have one witness that's here right now, but of October 1st, there was a pair of spawners on the riffle right below my house. They were spring Chinook spawners, 2 pair. Well, within a week, there was 6 pair and then 3 pair on the next riffle down. And I was unable to witness any other riffles. But this guy that's here right now, he made a drift by boat on oars from my brother's place down to Morgan Park, he counted 46 different reds. Not counting the fish. So right now there's spawners working the river and we'd like to protect them beds. So, we all know it's gonna rain. And what I don't wanna see is boats blowing up through their spawn beds. That's been my goal the whole time. So let's honor them fish's lives by not going upstream. Please, just go downstream, fish. Nobody's saying you can't fish, but respect them damn fish that are trying to carry on.
So I think that's a good message. I think Mike or Phil, we probably need to address that in our message is, be aware of reds, stay out of the reds. Because I've heard a lot of, comments, I'm mostly a wade fisherman and, there's lots of messages, don't walk in reds. So I think that's 100% appropriate. Did any other RAC members want to say anything? Angela sent us videos of the spawning fish. So Jennifer has put those in the public record, and so that all goes to the board members, and so they'll have an opportunity to watch those. It's also publicly available on our website, is that right?
No.
Not yet, but it will be. Okay, so those are available. If anybody wants us to send those specifically to you, we're happy to do that. So with that, any other RAC member questions?
I just want to thank Mike for facilitating capturing that video and allowing us access through his property to do so.
Perfect. So public comments, we have John Sullivan signed up to provide public comment. Oh, slow.
Well, I thought I had prepared, but apparently I'm not. After listening to your meeting, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mike because I'd already written my note down, travel downriver only. And that is not only to protect fish, but I thought it was an excellent idea to harmonize fishermen themselves because I live directly on the river, up high, up front. And I am observing that river 365 days a year, just like my guest house. I see certain fishermen coming down that river, and it's a very good fishing spot. And I have seen boats run back up, come down, run back up, come down, as many as 15 times on one stretch. Now, all the boats that are coming behind becomes a mess. They call those drift boats. Drift boat means drift with the current, not power back up against the current all day long, or run down passing all the other fishermen going downstream, or going down to the next put in and running half the drift back upstream so you can get ahead of the guys coming downstream. So if you want to try to help somebody, let's get the boats going downstream. Now, it's not like I haven't experienced a little bit. I've lived there 35 years. I fished the Siletz for 50 years. I'll be 90 years old next year, and I'm still rowing my own drift boat, so I know a little bit about it. The other thing that I'd like to address, by the way, there was other comments that I really had a hard time digesting, and that is, I want to fish like I want to fish. Well, we all have rules to go by. The last time I heard, this fishing we're doing is called sport fishing. If you're sport fishing, that means then everything should be equal to everybody. Not only a few that have the money to go down and buy boat motors and put on their boats. So this tells me that we could equalize everything if the state of Oregon would buy motors for everybody that wants one to put on their boat, then it's all equal. But for all these people that don't have motors, it is not equal. I could get into the 2 pages of stuff I've got written up. I don't want to go into that. I do want to reemphasize the fact that sport fishing demands equality. When we have the inability of some people to fish that as others do. In other words, with the motors, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Motors allow you to go faster, to go against the current, to pack a larger load. In fact, there's some of those out there, I don't know how to use their oars, but they're in the boat. So what I have noticed is the bigger boats I fished originally are 14 footers, then 16, that was a max. Now they're up to 20 foot. Why? To me, it's very clear. If you have a bigger boat, you can carry more people. If you're a guide and you have a bigger boat, you carry more people and make more money. It's in our world today, 90% of everything comes back around to one thing, money. Well, that's what I see. And of course, if the guides use motors, other fishermen are trying to learn how to be good fishermen like the guides, think they have to use motors also. I have talked to several fishermen, many fishermen, and that includes guides, and I get a reply constantly. I really don't want to use a motor, but I have to have it in order to compete with the other guides.
It doesn't get you to wrap.
And this has been going through this. I haven't been to your meeting, so I want to say that that's.
Well, we have a time limit on comments, so if you could wrap it up, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I will do that then. The other thing, I am a strong believer in appreciation of the river. I love it just like some of the other folks have expressed that. I would like and hope that we can do something, and I think the only something we can do in reality is get the boat motors off. Number one, it takes our sport fishing back to sport fishing.
Sir, I'm gonna have to cut you off. Please watch for when we have the rules, and then you could provide public comment in written form, and we will have rule hearings that you can provide additional public comment. I appreciate you coming tonight.
I had one more comment if I might finish up.
How long? Go fast.
This bit about fishing like I want to fish, that's bullshit. Okay, that's pure.
I appreciate your
We
comment.
used to use dynamite, we used to use spears, we used to use
I
gaff
understand.
hooks,
Thank
we
you,
used
sir.
to use nets.
Sir, thank you.
You can't fish like you want to fish, you have to fish to make it
Sir,
proper for everybody.
thank you very much. Scott Ammerman.
Get my notes here. Will say I've fished all over the state, fished all the other rivers that we've talked about today. Siletz to me has the least conflict of any of the rivers I fish on. A lot of that is because there's not a lot of anchors. Anchor boats tend to run down river, anchor up. They block the river above where they're anchored because you can't fish where their anchor is. If you fish anywhere within 100 yards below them, you're too close. And so I think the Siletz is great. I actually started Siletz Anglers as a nonprofit. You guys have mentioned that quite a bit because I want to make the Siletz a better place. We've talked about hatchery fish on the Siletz, why we only have 50,000, while the rivers have 150,000. Chris will tell you, we fought with ODF&W for 20 years trying to get them to give us more fish. We've offered to pay for them ourselves and haven't got there. We're working on it. We're doing a lot of things. I'm fighting the Pacific Salmon Treaty, trying to get more fish back to the Siletz constantly. I've fought with ODF&W about getting more of a voice in the Pacific Salmon Treaty. So we've done a lot of that kind of stuff. We are trying to do a lot of advocacy for the river to make it what we want it to be. You guys talked about something that we could write up, maybe we could all work together to release. I wrote something up really quick while we were sitting here. I'll read it to you guys and then I'll be done.
How about you send it to us and
I just wanted to let everybody hear it. And then
Okay.
I'll send it to you as well.
be quick.
I will.
Be
I mean,
quick. I
don't
appreciate it.
I think I'm at a minute and a half instead of
Okay, keep going.
So first of all, I would love to hear from the tribe and other people. Where are those pieces of property that they would want people to?
So let me
Sure.
address that comment real quick. So I'm not familiar with the Siletz and any tribal sensitive
Sure.
areas, but we don't want to ask the tribe where their tribally sensitive areas are. If they want to volunteer it, That's their choice. We're not gonna ask them. So
I was
that's
just
the
saying, so
position
we
of the
could-
board.
So we
If
could
they
bank
want to,
fish.
we're good, but
not
otherwise,
fish around it. I think everyone can be courteous of other users. If people are bank fishing, don't motor through the areas they're fishing. If people are anchored, don't fish where the other people are anchored. If people are floating through a hole, don't pull in and anchor in the middle of where all the other boats are floating. I think we can all spend our time to not affect how other people are fishing in a negative way. And if you are courteous to other people and try to make sure you don't affect how they are fishing, then we can all get along better. So I think that that's the big thing, is don't negatively impact other people.
all right, thanks, sir. Mr. Glass.
Jack Glass. I work as a full-time fishing guide in the state of Oregon for 42 years. I live on the Sandy River. I've owned property there since 1981. And I've gone through a lot of changes on the Sandy River. One of them was, Sandy's a navigable river, just like the Siletz River is. It was deemed in 1958 when Oregon became a state. Citizens owned the beds and the banks. Even though I'm a landowner, I was quite upset when Governor Kitzhofer signed off on the bill and made that equitable to make it public land. So that means I lost my riverbank. I got it taken away up to the mean high water line. So it was one thing I didn't like. There's a lot of things that's happened, but I didn't get in the middle of that. I stayed out of the whole deal because I want to get along with everybody and work together. We also were not able to fish out of the boat. It was strictly shore fishing. You had to get out of the boat, fish on the bank. Well, Fish and Wildlife said, well, why don't we open it up? They're not affecting the wild fish. You gotta let those go. You can only keep hatchery fish. Let's allow fishing from a boat. Okay, they opened it up and then it got taken away from the fly fishing group, said, no, we can't have that. We gotta fish on the bank. So we had a limited area, about 5% of the river is power boat. The rest was fishing from the shore. You can float, but you could have fish on shore. So I wanted to expand that. So we were able to rechange that rule. Now we have an area where the fly fishers can go, no fishing from a boat. Then we have a drip boat area, drip boats can fish, and we have a power boat area. So 3 user groups, and it really works well. We've created balance in the watershed. All the user groups get their choice where they want to go, and it works well. So it sounds like our biggest deal here is to figure out where this motor area is. That's the main question, where the motor is going to be used. I think one comment somebody made about water levels, that could be an impact. At a certain water level, you don't go there. Water low, stay out of it. So that gives user groups to still use it. And then passing the information about being courteous to other boaters is a big deal. We do that. We have a broodstock program on the Sandy River. We got an effective steelhead program. I was really upset when the dam was taken out. They took away half of our spring Chinook production. I had to live through all that. Being a landowner, I've had major changes I had to go through on my watershed. And I was able to get gray hair, but I lost much of my hair through all of that. But we can work together as a group. We can put this thing together on the Siletz where we can have the user groups. And so water levels might be a big thing on motors. Staying off the beds, yes, I agree. Move out of the way. But when the water's high, you're not going to impact that. Certain levels, you're not going to impact those spawn beds as much. So things like that we could look at, I think, move forward so everybody gets their opportunity on the water.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, that's everybody who signed their public comment. So our meeting's adjourned. Thank you for coming. I appreciate everybody at this meeting.